Hey, welcome students. In this video, we're going to create the top of our cribbage board as a 3D model in Inventor. In the next video in this series, we're going to take the top that we model up in this series or this video, and we'll create some G-code for the router to drive it. So what you're looking at on my screen right now is kind of a finished example. This is what we'll have when this video is done. And so if you're working along with me, you're probably going to start off at this screen in Inventor. We can click on the New Part button. That'll allow us to model up a new part. And every part in Inventor starts off as a 2D sketch. So I just click the Start 2D Sketch icon. Now I get these three different drawing planes or sketching planes that show up on my screen. And it's real important that we pick the XY plane to sketch in when we get started. The XY plane is the same plane that plywood represents on our CNC router. So as the router moves left and right, it's going up and down the X axis. As it moves back and forth away from that computer desk that's sitting in front of the CNC router, it's moving along the Y axis. And then as the router lifts itself up and down, it's moving along the Z axis. All right, so just to make our setup a little easier in future steps, we want to start off on the XY plane. Okay, now I'm going to grab the rectangle tool by clicking on it, and I'm going to come over to my origin. When I see that green dot appear, I'm just going to click on my mouse and let go. Okay, and now I can enter in the size I want this rectangle to be as I draw it. I want this rectangle to be 9 by 9 inches, so I'm going to hit 9, and then I'll tab over to the other dialog box, and I'll enter 9 in there. Now, if you type the wrong number in one of those dialog boxes, you can tab through them infinitely until you got the numbers the way you want. Okay, we're going for 9 by 9. Once I've got that entered in, I'll click the Enter button on my keyboard, and I can see the lower corner of my rectangle here. What I want to do now is hit this little magnifying glass in my sheet of paper just to confirm I've got a 9-inch by 9-inch square on my screen. Okay. If it's not the correct dimensions, or maybe you missed putting a dimension in, I can always click Escape to free me from the rectangle tool. I could double click on the number 9. It would let me come back and enter some dimensions. Or if you've got like a green line with no dimensions, you could grab this dimensioning tool, click the line, and then type the number 9 in, and it would enter the dimension for you. So I'm going to say Finish Sketch because it's the size I want. Then I'm going to zoom it so it fits on my screen, and now I'll extrude this and turn it into a 3D shape. Okay, this is going to represent the board we start off with, and the board we start off with is going to be 3/4 of an inch thick. So I just type that number in the box here, and then I'm going to click OK. All right, so now that we've got the board we're going to start off with, we can start to draw out that circular shaped cap. So I'm going to right-click on this big, large surface and say New Sketch. I'm going to use the hand to just kind of drag it down centered on my screen, and I want to draw a circle. Now, when I draw these other features, I need to draw them to the size I want and then get them in the correct location. So I want this circle to be 8 inches in diameter, so I'm going to type the number 8. I'll hit Enter, and I've got an 8-inch diameter circle on my screen. Okay, now I need to get this to the right location. So I'm going to click the center point. After I click the dimension tool up top here, I'm going to click the center point, and then I'm going to click the edge of my object. And to center this on my 9-inch board, I want the center point to be 4.5 inches from the edge. So after I click my mouse again, it opens up this dialog box. I can type in 4.5. I'll hit Enter. My dimension tool is still active because it's still highlighted in blue up here. So I'm going to click the center point again. Click the top or bottom edge of my project, click my mouse again to open up that dialog box, and I want to set this distance at 4.5 inches as well. And now you can see when I do that, it says fully constrained down here, and my circle turns purple. That's a good thing. That means it's locked into place. Now I'm going to come up to the Modify tab and pick this Offset tool. This is going to let me take my existing circle, and I can offset a second circle a fixed distance from the edge. Okay? I want to make this circle 0.25 inches or 1/4 of an inch offset. And so this will give me that path that I can take and drive my router bit through to cut this project out with. So I'm going to say Finish Sketch. I'll come back to this screen and I'm going to extrude. Now it doesn't pop up with a preview right away, so I've got to go click in between these two lines. And then it says you want to extrude this area, and it takes a guess at the direction. I actually want to go the opposite way, right? And I want to cut all that material out of there. So if it stays at 0.75, I should be good to go. All right, and now you can see I've got that circle cut all the way around the outside edge. Okay, the next thing I need to do is I'm going to right click on this flat surface again, come in and start a new sketch. And now I want to put the two holes in there for my pins that are going to get drilled in. So holes start off as a point. So I'm going to click the point tool and I'm going to come up along the center line and I'll put a green point up top. I'll come down to the bottom and I'll put a green point. And they're a little difficult to see on my screen, but I've got one right about here in green. And now I'm going to use the constrain tools, and I want to horizontally constrain these so they match left to right. Oops, I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong one. I need to vertically constrain them so they line up left to right. So I'm going to click the top point, I'll click the bottom point, and you can see this top one slid over, so now it's perfectly aligned with the one below it. Okay, once I've done that, I'm going to dimension them. I want these points to be centered on my project. So remember that board underneath was 9 inches. So I'm going to do this 4.5 inches over from the edge. Right, because I already constrained the top and the bottom to be aligned. When it moves this bottom one, right, that top point moves with it as well. And now I'm going to take and dimension these vertically. So the first thing I'm going to do is click my 2 points. I'll drag my cursor over here and click to open that dialog box. I want a 5-inch space in between these 2 points. So I'll type the number 5 and hit enter. All right, and then I want these points to be centered on this point. And so I'm going to click the bottom point. I'll click the bottom of my project, come over here and I'll click again. I want a 2-inch space between the bottom of my project and that bottom point. And so now these points are lined up with the center points on that project you worked on earlier for your cribbage board. So I'm going to finish this sketch. And I want to turn those 2 points into holes. So I'm going to grab this hole tool up here on the create area. It's going to open up a dialog box. Now, I already did these holes as practice. So just check that under type, yours matches mine. We want a simple hole. We want no seat. We want the termination picked to this first option, which is distance. And we want an angled drill point on the bottom of this hole. It's going to have a 118-degree drill point. And so I want the depth of my hole set at 0.375. That's 3/8 of an inch. And then I want the diameter of my hole set at 1/4 inch. Okay, again, I didn't have to change these numbers because it remembers how I entered them when I did my practice drawing. You might have to if this is your first time in. Okay. And it should give you a little preview on your screen where you can see these 2 holes are selected. If they look good, we can click OK, and we've got 2/4 inch holes on our screen. All right, so we've done quite a bit with this. I'm going to go ahead and save this to my Google Drive for my Woods class. If you haven't saved this project yet, I would recommend doing so at this point. I'm going to call it my Cribbage board top. All right, so the last thing we need to do is put that pocket in the top here so that when this slips over the top of our cribbage board, it holds our deck of cards in place. All right, so I am again going to click on Start 2D Sketch. I'm going to click on this face. All right, and just like we've done with the holes in the circle, I'm going to draw a shape to the correct size, and then I'm going to move it to the correct location. So I'm going to take the 2-point rectangle tool, and I'm just going to click and start dragging a rectangle in this area. Okay. I want this rectangle to be 2 5/8 of an inch wide. Okay. So I'm typing in 5/8 as a fraction. I could have typed that in with the decimal equivalent, but Inventor's smart. It'll do the math for me. Right. And then I want this box to be 3 5/8 of an inch tall. Right. Again, I'm going to just type that in as a fraction. Inventor's smart. It'll figure that out for me. Okay. Now I need a distance of a 1/2 inch from the midpoint of this project to this vertical line. So I got to do a little bit of math here. I know this is 9 inches wide, this square overall. So from this side to the center point is 4.5. An additional 1/2 inch would be 5 inches. So I'm going to come in and dimension the distance from this line to this edge, right, at 5 inches. Right, and now I want this hole centered up and down, or this pocket that I'm creating centered up and down on my project. I'm not as good at dividing 3/8 by half as I was at dividing, 1/2 inch by half. So I'm going to come up here and use these constraint tools again. This time I'm going to use the horizontal constraint. And what I'm going to do is slide along this vertical line on the rectangle I just drew till it turns green and tells me that's your midpoint. Then I'm going to come over here to the edge of my object, slide my cursor along until I get another green dot where it says this is the midpoint of this vertical line. And I'm going to lock these two midpoints together. So it just took my rectangle and slid it down so it's perfectly centered. Half of it's above the midpoint, half is below. Okay, again, if I look at this, it's totally purple. It says fully constrained down here. So I've got my rectangle in the right spot. I'm going to finish my sketch. And I'm going to extrude. This is another one where I want to cut into this material. So I'm going to switch the distance to option number 2. And I want to go to a depth of 3/8 of an inch. So 0.375. I'll extrude that in. All right, it looks good. So I'm going to click save. All right. And at this point, congratulate yourself. All right, you've made it to the end of the modeling process. Now we just need to program that CNC router in the next video.